I have no idea why you guys weren't showing up, but I see you guys could see me. I thought I was having technical difficulties. The topic for today is step number 2 in the Live Disease-Free plan. And the Live Disease-Free plan is a plan that we use, the Wellness Champion use, to recover from chronic disease. And the chronic disease is stemming from chronic infections in the body, and we have to take specific steps to successfully recover from them, to get our life back and to get on and move on with our life. So last week we talked about the Live Disease-Free diet, how important it is, the rationale. I'll talk about that in a minute. But today we're talking about step number 2, supporting the body. And we're going to talk about why this is so critical to our success to recover from these horrible, deep-rooted chronic infections. So I'm not sure why my comments are not showing up here, but you guys, I'm hoping that it will show up here soon. I'll just give it a minute. I know you guys are there. So again, the diet is step number 1, and we talked about that last week. If you didn't get a chance to join me last week, then make sure you go and look at the replay. The diet is the first step because we want to decrease the food to these infections that are making us sick. They cause a lot of inflammation. And so as we decrease the food to them, they're less active. We start to have less inflammation and we start to feel a lot better. We start to have symptom improvements. And that's what gets the wellness champions really excited because they're like, it's working. Oh, and that's what I wanted to check with you. For those of you that joined me last week, I want you to report back if you followed the plan, if you noticed any small improvements, because if you followed the Live Disease-Free diet, you should have, and I will carry on. The second step in recovering is to support the body. And this is part of a series of videos that I'm doing where I'm going deeper into the topics that are really essential for our success in recovering from chronic disease. We can't just pop a pill to treat these infections. It doesn't work like that. When we have neurological symptoms, when we have chronic disease, we have had these infections usually for years. And with that, they are not just in the intestines, they've moved into the bloodstream, they've moved into our organs, they've also moved often into the central nervous system. And so it is challenging to treat them really well. Some of the worms can produce 100,000 eggs in a day. There's biofilms, there's the eggs that live dormant, spores, etc. So we have to use strategy, and that's what the Live Disease-Free plan is. So with respect to supporting the body, the 2 things that I always stress with my Wellness Champion students is number 1, making sure that they're sleeping well at night. And this is such a simple thing. It doesn't cost any money. A lot of people that are sick, they're night hawks. They stay up really late at night. They have a hard time falling asleep. They wake up often throughout the night. And that will just destroy any success we have in recovery. We need sleep. If we don't sleep, we won't heal. I encourage my students, the Wellness Champions, to start going to bed a half an hour earlier, each night or every couple of nights until they're able to fall asleep between 9 and 10 o'clock. Even 10 o'clock is better than midnight for sure. The hours of sleep we get before midnight are the most healing hours. And if we go to bed early enough, those 2 or 3 hours before midnight, they make a huge difference in how we feel in the morning. And then we wake up just by ourselves without having our alarm clock wake us up. So sleep is critical. The other thing that our students will start off with the diet and sleep, and then having a daily bowel movement. Very, very important. This is something that when we have these parasites, it's pretty common, it's pretty normal that our students are dealing with severe constipation and or diarrhea or alternating. And these parasites are causing both the constipation and diarrhea or alternating. So we have to use something over the counter that is safe and effective. It has to be something that isn't going to feed the infections, and it shouldn't contain sugars or dyes, etc. And it's very important that we get the bowels moving, because otherwise the toxins build up in our intestines, they're absorbed into our blood, then our liver has so much more work to deal with. And if our liver is not able to clean up the toxins from these infections and from the inflammation, then that goes past the liver and it crosses the blood-brain barrier. It can wake us up in the middle of the night. It can affect our mood. It can affect our mental, like as far as memory and foggy head and all of those things. It really impacts our cognitive function and our mood, these toxins. So very important that we are getting the bowels moving. And it takes a bit of work. For some students, they'll get supplements like I really like magnesium. Magnesium citrate is a good start if you don't have serious constipation, but you have to make sure that it's just non-gelatin capsules, so veggie caps, nothing in it, just white powder, no sweeteners, no colors or dyes or fillers, just plain magnesium citrate. Or another one I really love is Oxy Powder. You can find that on our website, livediseasefree.com. It's called Oxy Powder, it's ozonated magnesium. And it's really, really helpful. Some people just need one at night before they go to bed. Some people need 2 or 3. But it's super, super helpful to get the bowels moving. And it's not going to feed the infections. It does not. And that's where you have to be careful with. Psyllium husks, we really haven't found those to be extremely helpful because we're dealing with people that have severe parasitic infestations. If you're healthy and you just have a little bit of irregularity, non-gluten psyllium husks can be helpful, but otherwise we don't find them helpful enough. So those are the two things. So the diet and also the diet and supporting the body are the 2 first steps in the Live Disease Free plan, and they are called the prep phase. So these 2 steps, what we're doing is we're preparing to treat. And we're using strategy because if you just take a parasite drug or you take it, like whether it's a deworming or fungal or to treat bacteria, herbs, etc., you're not going to have a lot of success if you don't do a successful prep phase. It makes the treatments so much more successful. If you enjoy what you're learning, make sure to please share this and like it so that we can get more people, helping them to do the steps they need to do to feel a lot better, to recover. Like these are the first steps. All right. So the other things, there's quite a few steps in supporting the body. And this is all getting ready to treat. So we want to correct nutritional deficiencies. And we do that through the Live Disease-Free diet because it's really high in vegetables. So that's very important. But we also will look at the supplements we're taking. And most people that are taking supplements are taking far too many supplements. So they are usually decreasing the different supplements that they're taking. And what we find really helpful is just a basic multivitamin mineral that's from plants, not synthetic, and maybe a little bit of extra calcium because calcium is deficient in our food these days. And let's see, omega-3 if they want to, but it's really the multivitamin mineral from plants and a little bit of extra calcium. Those are the 2 most important ones. And if you're taking 10 to 15 supplements from a wonderful healthcare professional that you're working with integrative, what I say to my students is, how long have you been taking it? Has it really made a difference? And if it hasn't, then I say, I personally wouldn't take them anymore. And it's really hard. It's hard. It's just that we lack the skill to read labels. And if we don't know how to read labels, then very often we are fooled into buying supplements that we think are really helpful for us, but they're not. They're synthetic. So usually people are taking too many supplements. And what I say to my students is that if it's not really making a difference and if it's not from plant source, number 1, it's definitely not, your body doesn't want it. But number 2, it's a waste of money. And sometimes they contain ingredients that can actually make us feel more sick because there sometimes can be maltodextrin and sugars and starches and different things like that that will feed these infections. And it doesn't take much. So supplements is just making sure they're plant source, making sure just a basic multivitamin mineral, and also just taking like a little bit of extra calcium would be great. Cleaning up the environment. So we're going to talk about minimizing our toxins from our environment later in one of the other steps. But the 2 that we start off with right away are to decrease the, to make sure that we check for mold in our environment. That's very, very important because very often it's the mold that makes us sick. So there are people that have lived in a moldy home, or maybe they worked in a moldy office space or area, and the mycotoxins from the mold, they really, really weaken our immune system. They make us more susceptible to other infections, but then we can also have mold issues and fungal issues inside our body also. So mold is one of the ones that we get our Wellness Champion students to start hunting in the house for mold, and really looking for areas where there could be water damage, or maybe roof, like the roof leaking, maybe the basement, or musty smells, looking at your shower, if you have tile, if it's loose, things like that. Dealing with mold is number one. And then we do take care of heavy metals later on. But the second one that's really important, and we'll talk more about this when we're talking about cleaning up the environment, but just to touch on it, it's the radiation in our environment. And this is an invisible toxin that we're really not, most of us are really not aware of it. We might have heard about it a little bit, but so the wireless technologies that they put out this radiation, and it's called, there's EMF and RF radiation. So wireless radiation is the RF radiation. So yes, it's important to deal with EMF and RF, but the RF, the wireless radiation, is a really big concern these days. And doctors like Dr. Klinghardt, he's measured it in his lab, and he's found that this was before 5G. 5G is a lot stronger, but the ambient wireless radiation in the environment would make, on a petri dish, would make the infections grow up to 600 times faster. So when we're around a lot of this radiation from our cell phones, from our computers, from our smart appliances, from maybe a 5G transmitter that's outside of our home pointing into our home, or maybe there's a cell tower close to us. There are so many sources, the router that's in our home. We are bombarded with wireless radiation, and it really, really impacts our health. Dr. Magda Havas is an expert in this, and I've attended a lot of workshops in the past before all this virus stuff going on, and travel restrictions. But like, she has shared in one of her videos, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube, where she took two people with multiple sclerosis, and she measured their one gentleman's ability to walk a straight line, and he walked very staggering. And then another lady, she had tremors in her hands, like really significant tremors. So she measured that before, and then they omitted all of the wireless radiation and the EMF and dirty electricity, all of it. And the gentleman was able to walk a straight line just from that alone. And the lady, her tremors decreased by at least 3/4 just by decreasing the wireless radiation. So I know that I talk about this, and I know some people are like, yeah, I should get around to it. But it's super, super important. So when I'm doing my calls, my coaching calls, I talk on a corded phone. I do not have a wireless phone. I'm on my computer right now, which has an Ethernet cable. The Wi-Fi is turned off. The Bluetooth is turned off. And so you can still have technology, you can still work with technology, but you can decrease the radiation. And that will make the infections not grow as quickly. It's almost like they're more pathogenic. They grow faster, they produce more poisons, they're more virulent is what it's called. So that is a very important step, and it's something that, just in this past year, we've been introduced a lot of places to 5G, which is much stronger than the 4G and the 3G that we've had in the past. All of this impacts our health tremendously, so that's really important. So we talked about sleep, we talked about the 2 first steps of cleaning up the environment, and about supplements, and we've talked about the diet. Last time, make sure to watch the replay if you didn't. We talked about all of the different steps we take to follow the diet. And as far as having bowel movements, that's another really big one. So we talked a little bit about how important that is. But if we don't have a daily bowel movement, we don't want to start treating, because what'll happen is the worms, the parasites, they will die in us. They will start to break down. Our immune system will start to break down. They'll start to rot. And the poisons from that goes back into our bloodstream, etc., and our liver and into our brain, etc., making us weaker. So we know that the parasites, they can harbor many times higher concentrations of heavy metals than we do in our body. They're almost like a heavy metal sink. So when we kill them, we want them to come out of us as quickly as possible. So that is why bowel movements, daily bowel movements, are so important, even just one. And with our students, they usually, if they're constipated, they usually have, they're called fecal stones, severe constipation where they have little round hard balls with their stool. And so with changing the diet and using these all the steps we're doing in supporting the body, drinking more water, and trying to be a little bit active. If we're quite disabled, we're limited, but we can do some things. All of these things, and then using a supplement to get the bowels moving, our stool becomes less hard and compacted, and that's really important. So this is opening up our detox pathways. So there's one way where we can go to integrated practitioners, and I do love them, and I know that they're doing the very best. And they're taught, people need this supplement and that supplement, this one and that. And before you know it, you're taking 10 to 15 supplements. We have not found that it is really helpful. If there's something that's really helped you, use it. But otherwise, really start to question, because there is nothing like your body knowing how to detox. It does that all day. We just have to support it. So if we're not taking in poisons, we're eating really healthy, we're eating really clean, and we're getting the bowels moving, then our body is able to start doing its job a lot better with detoxification. Often in the program, we'll use like an oxygen type enema liquid that it is able to clear out some of the parasites in the intestines. That helps with the constipation, but their students are also taking something from the top down, because any enemas we do is not going to reach the small intestines, and at least there's over 20 feet of small intestines. So we want to deal with the constipation from the top down and from the bottom also. Hydrating, drinking lots of water, filtering your water, really important. And you don't want to drink acidic water. So if you are using reverse osmosis, make sure to add minerals back in. And some reverse osmosis is fine. If that's not what you're using, maybe you're using activated charcoal, that's a great start. Try to find a way to make sure you're not having fluoride. Check to see if you have fluoride in your municipal water supply. That is a poison. When you go to your dentist, ask for your teeth cleaning to have no fluoride in it. You can do that. Most dentists have that. So water is really important. That will help with the constipation also. And then optimizing our physiology. So our students will get their blood work done, just basic blood work, looking at their thyroid function, their adrenals, looking at their white blood count, their liver, and their kidney function. All of the main things that are on the CBC panel, comprehensive panel, some labs call it, to just support areas. Maybe our iron is a little low, to build that back up. Our vitamin D might be low. Our thyroid might be low. If these areas need attention and we do that before we start treating, the treatment will be so much more successful. So very important that we look at all of those things and support. And even before we start treating, we want to see how is our liver function, right? We want to make sure that our liver is functioning fine, our kidneys are functioning fine before we start treating. So all of these things, they support not just our body, but they support immune modulation. And that's really important, because before we start to treat, some people are really sensitive. Like when they come to me, they're like, if I take a herb, if I take any medicine, I just react so strongly to it. And so what we want to do is we want to help our immune system to modulate. So there are supplements people can take, but really the steps that we've just talked about in supporting the body, those are really the key components to help modulate the immune system naturally, right? And this is what we need to do. So the Live Disease-Free diet and supporting the body, these first two steps are what we do to prepare to treat. If we don't do this, I see this all the time with my students, if they are still eating too many grams of carbs, the treatments don't work as well. If they're not having daily bowel movements, if they haven't done all of these steps and they're not feeling a lot better, and it is significantly better, especially when they're following it properly, then the treatments are just not going to work as well. Treatments cost money. We want to get the biggest bang for our buck. We want to recover as quickly as possible. So that's why I encourage people to really follow these steps. What can we expect when we follow the diet, the Live Disease-Free diet, and we support the body? We see that the first things that improve are the bladder. So if any of you guys started last week with the diet, you will have noticed that your bladder has significantly improved, where people are not getting up 4 to 5 to 6 times a night. Maybe they're getting up once or twice a night. That's a big shift in a very short time. People also notice, so then they're sleeping better. So then they wake up more refreshed. They find that they have more mental clarity. They're feeling happier. Some students notice decrease in pain and in spasticity, that cramping. They feel that their legs are a little stronger, a little less spastic. This is all because the inflammation is starting to decrease, right? And that is why balance can improve, strength in legs and arms, and even tremors can improve. So this is the power, and this really doesn't cost anything. This is what you can do on your own. So I really encourage you to start with those steps. And as far as getting the blood work done, that is something that we should have done periodically. Anyhow, that's the only thing. If you're in the States, I know that there's LabCorp. You can get that done for, I think, $200, or you can ask your doctor if it's covered, but it's just basic blood work. It's nothing fancy. Some students are going to integrative practitioners. Again, I love and respect them, but they're spending thousands of dollars on testing. It can be up to $6,000 to $10,000 on testing. And we haven't seen personally, and in, I would say, at least 1,000 students, that it's really made that much of a difference. They're not able to pick up the right parasites. And as far as hormones, it's just get rid of the infections, get rid of the toxins, support it, and just with nutrition, and your body is genetically programmed to be able to balance out the hormones. And all the rest of the steps is just really enabling the body to go back to working the way it is designed to do. What a simple concept. So those are some of the experiences that our students will have. I'm going to go to your questions for a minute here. All right, so let's see. Hi, Rosanna. Hi, Davida. I think that's how you pronounce your name. Hello. Hi, Laura Lee. So do you recommend a supplement to repair myelin? No, I don't, because your body knows how to repair myelin. Your immune system does. So, but what we do is we just give our body the basic building blocks. So a good multivitamin mineral is great. And then we're having 9 to 13 servings of vegetables per day, and we're having the amino acids from complete animal protein. We're having healthy fats. Your body is designed. It knows how to repair myelin. So when we have inflammation, that can be repaired for sure. So there is no specific supplement. It's really the healing occurs when the inflammation stops. Your body knows how to heal. So we have to focus on how do we get the inflammation to stop? How do we treat these infections well enough in the central nervous system, but especially in the intestines? We found that a lot of the inflammation that is causing nerve symptoms is still present in the gut, in the intestines. There's a big highway of nerves from your intestines up into your brain, through your spinal cord to your brain. And so it's not always just the neurological symptoms that are coming from the lesions in the brain, but from the gut, inflammation in the gut also. Very, very big part, because we have many students that become completely symptom-free for years and they still have lesions. And then some of them that treat well enough, the lesions are healing over. But the lesions in the central nervous system, again, are not always causing all of the neurological symptoms. Very often, they're not the biggest contributor to the symptoms we're suffering with. So Kimberly, you're trying the diet and you seem to be feeling better every day. Yay, I'm so proud of you. That is so awesome. Your balance is better, and your walking is better, and your balance too. I am so proud of you, Kimberly. That is amazing. Like, look at you. That's so awesome. Michael, hello. Vertigo is kicking you today, and you must be the 109 degrees high humidity, MS since 2003 heat. So yes, heat definitely bothers us when we have multiple sclerosis. But the good news is, Michael, that if you treat these infections, you will be able to handle the heat. Maybe you won't still love the 109 with high humidity, but you will be able to enjoy hot weather at the beach, etc. And maybe you want to follow Kimberly's lead and follow the last week's video, and that is step 1 in the Live Disease-Free plan, starting to follow the Live Disease-Free diet. I'm so proud of you, Kimberly. Way to go. I'm so proud of you. Hi, Tennille. And hi, Felix. You've always been one bothered by the cold, but not the heat. Born and raised and live in South Carolina, 59 years old, diagnosed with MS in 1999. So the thing is, Felix, I don't know if you've watched any of my videos, but please do on Live Disease Free YouTube. You'll see that there are playlists about learn about the infections, start to follow the diet, start to feel better, start to understand and believe that you are dealing with chronic parasitic infections in your body, and that's what's causing it. And yes, some people are bothered more by cold and some by heat, but it's just the infections. And as you treat them, you will be able to handle the heat and the cold. Jackie, cold hurts so much for you too? So cold hurts so much for me. Heat is a relief for my body. And isn't that weird, eh? How some people find that the heat is much more difficult and some people find cold is more difficult for MS. So you'll watch this tomorrow. Awesome. Hoppy. Hi, Vanita. Can you explain the lab tests we need? So these are just basic blood work that our general practitioner usually will ask for. So you might ask for a couple more. So you might want to make sure that your vitamin D levels are high enough. And just as far as your thyroid, they usually will measure T4, TSH, but you want to also measure T3. That's very important. And so that's thyroid function. The other ones are they'll measure your white blood count, all the different immune cells, liver and kidney function important. So those are really usually pretty common. And iron for sure. And so ferritin and hemoglobin, because very often when we have these parasites, we are deficient in iron. That will make us really tired, and it will definitely impair our healing process for sure. So looking at, common things would be low thyroid, common thing would be low blood iron. Looking at if you want your adrenal to make sure they're not adrenal fatigue. Very often they are if we've had these chronic parasitic infections for a while. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I wouldn't do the comprehensive stool analysis. You're not going to find the parasites there that are really making you sick. It just costs money. I personally wouldn't do the hormone testing. I wouldn't even do a lot of testing for candida, etc. If you have symptoms of fungus, treat it. That's as simple as it is. You can treat them with herbs. You can treat them with antifungal drugs. But the problem is these tests are very limited at this time. I wish we had better tests. I would definitely recommend them to try to figure out which parasites we have. We're going to talk about that more when we get closer to building the game plan to treat, because how do we figure out what we're going to use for our game plan? But I cannot stress enough how important this prep phase is at this point in time, because there are very few doctors that really understand the connection between infection and chronic disease as far as parasites. Yes, they know about Lyme, they know about Candida and possibly other molds, but the parasite is really something that only a handful of practitioners that I'm aware of in North America that have a lot of experience in treating them and recognizing them and treating them. And so the prep phase is super important to our success. And again, Kimberly, I'm so proud of you. I wonder if there's anyone else that took me up on that. So in the US, you could not find magnesium citrate. It should be in any drugstore or health food store. It's pretty common that didn't have sugar. So Senna for constipation is fine. It shouldn't be a problem, but you just have to be careful with it. With Senna, it's not going to feed the infections, but just make sure you don't use too much. So Senna and Cascara are two herbal laxatives. And if you are changing, like if you're using that as a short term, as you're going through the steps and you're treating, that's fine. But if you just continue to eat the way you are and just to take a herbal laxative, you'll find that you need more and more and more of it, and your colon becomes lazier and lazier. So I just wouldn't take it for long periods of time. So we found the magnesium citrate or the Oxy powder to be really, really helpful, not habit forming, and the extra benefit. But again, if you can't get it, senna is fine, but just use as little as possible to get the job done. And don't use it as a crutch, is what I'm trying to say. Your neurologist once told you that she felt MS can be when your immune system is too good. No, that's not true at all. I fit that theory. I rarely get sick. That's normal. That is really common. People that have autoimmune disease, very often they don't get the flu very often. And that's not what it's about. So what it is about is that, so you actually think you caught the virus, but you got over it in a day. There's a lot to that. Number one, even if you were tested, it's really virtually impossible to differentiate between this virus we're dealing with right now or the influenzas. I'm just trying to avoid censorship here. So the testing they're using right now cannot differentiate between influenza and the virus that they're trying to look at. So you may have had, I don't know which virus you had. And usually people with autoimmune disease, very often they do recover. Not all the time. It depends on the state. If we're really super disabled and really worn down after many years, then yes, we might be more susceptible to negative outcomes with viruses. But for the most part, if you're relatively still functioning quite well, then like myself, I rarely ever would get the flu. Rarely ever. So that's the cause of MS is infection. And so what I would really encourage you, Felix, is to start researching. I've got on our website, livediseasefree.com, we have a research section. Just scan some of the articles there. You'll see there's tons of studies showing that infections are involved with MS. Then look at the playlist and start to learn about the infections, the different types of infections. That is your answer. And when the neurologist is saying, oh, your immune system is too good, she really doesn't know what else to say. She's just kind of making stuff up as she goes. Hi, Dana. Have you done any research on treatment of parasites and infections using fulvic acid? So it won't be effective enough. We've had some students that have taken supplements of the humic and fulvic acid supplements, and you can take it. I guess the only thing is I'm just not sure how much carbohydrate is in it, because sometimes there are polysaccharides in it because it's coming from like organic matter. And if you are taking it and you are like doing all the other steps and you're really healing, that's fine. But if you're plateauing, it can be very small adjustments that make all the difference. So we haven't noticed a huge improvement in that. It is good to take some trace minerals for sure, because when we have these parasites, they produce a lot of organic acids, which can make us more acidic. And then our body will use up minerals to buffer, to keep us alkaline. So we can be deficient in minerals. That's quite common when we have chronic disease. And so it is helpful very often to include some organic minerals, or when I say organic, it can be inorganic, not pesticide related. It can be from ocean minerals or plant minerals, but they can be really helpful. The humic fulvic acid, you can try it. If you're healing and you're moving forward, great. And if you're not, take it out. We haven't seen a huge amount of success with that. Hi, Jackie. Do you treat the different parasite infections or how do you treat them effectively? So the prep phase, we're going to talk more about that later. I'm not going to go into how we're treating them, because that's a whole nother topic that we'll talk about later in one of the next videos, and I'll be going live every Wednesday. So this step is really important to a successful treatment. If you don't use diet and you don't support the body well, then people find that, number one, the treatments don't work as well, and also people can have more Herxheimer reactions. So they can have these reactions where they feel a lot worse if they're taking treatments and they're like, oh, I just feel horrible. I'm super sensitive to things. So that is why this phase is so important. So stay tuned for the parasite treatments. So you're trying to see them. This is the first time you saw the email. Awesome. Good. So make sure to watch the diet from last week. And you guys, if you didn't start on that, please do. And you can report like Kimberly did. Any of you that just joined later, were you present last week when I was talking about the Live Disease-Free diet? Did you implement? Did you have improvements? Please share, because that really helps me. It excites me. It encourages me to keep doing all this free training for you. Hello, Cannon Roots. The nerve damage, you have been spasming every night for 20 years. I think that's what you mean. You assume that the parasites are mostly in the nerves, not in the intestine. That is not necessarily true. We have found that with the spasticity, by correcting the intestines, it's a really big part of it. So we're not able to look to see, we're not doing MRIs all the time, and they're still not very accurate anyhow. But we just kind of say, whatever, we're just going to support the body. We're going to treat these infections. But all I can share is that when they still have the lesions, and it can be not for everyone's different, but we've had, like, for example, Terry Kylie. In 3 months, she came off 3 medications for MS. She was starting to walk again. All her spasticity was gone. That's not everyone, but that is what we do see. If it takes you 3 months, 6 months, etc. There's one student I'm thinking of right now, and she's had spasticity for years, and her leg was so stiff that she couldn't even move the ankle at all. And now she's starting to move it. And that was after, I would say, at least 12 treatment cycles. So everyone is different. Everyone implements differently. So, but the key is that the more successful you are at this first step, you will probably notice improvements in your spasticity already, just with the diet, never mind supporting the body. So I would really encourage you, Cannon Roots, to really take this seriously. Hi, Tennille. How do you stop the bowels from running? So just our most current student that had a lot of diarrhea, what she did is we were following the Live Disease-Free diet. She is following it, and she's not eating raw. So she's going from the shopping list. There is a cheat sheet in the Live Disease-Free community on Facebook page. You can find it there, and you can join the community and download the cheat sheet. There's 2 sides of it. It explains which vegetables you can eat, but make sure you're not eating raw. So she avoided all raw vegetables, and she actually had her gallbladder removed too. And she's doing amazing. She said, my stomach is like, she's like, I can't remember, like since a child, my stomach has not been this peaceful and calm. And she's sleeping really well now too. And she hasn't even started treating yet. So make sure that you're eating vegetables that agree with you. If there's something that doesn't agree with you that's on the list, then just don't eat it. But just avoiding all the starchy vegetables, all the sugars. Cook your vegetables, and you'll notice that the inflammation is going to start to go down, and the diarrhea will definitely stop. And you might find that you're going to be a little bit less regular, like not every day. And that's because the diarrhea and constipation are all caused by the parasites. So then once you have settled the diarrhea down, you might have to use a little bit of magnesium citrate to just make sure you're having bowel movements every day before you start treating, right? So that's really important. So Tennille, hi, you're eating fresh blueberries and oatmeal and drinking water and still having loose bowel movements. So again, we would avoid all the grains. We're not like, go back and watch the video from last week, the Live Disease-Free diet, the replay, you'll see it on YouTube and Facebook, Live Disease-Free. Watch it and start to implement and get that cheat sheet. Go off of all grains. You're not digesting them well, and the infections are digesting them. They're feasting on them, and they're causing the diarrhea. So really important. All right, Jackie. So you just woke up one morning with a tingle in your toes. The next day, your foot went numb. The third day, you could barely walk. And the fourth day, 11 out of 10 pain started. I am so sorry to hear that, Jackie. So what you're dealing with is a very strong immune reaction, I would assume, unless there's something else going on that you injured yourself. But if you're totally healthy and you haven't had any injury, this sounds like it is inflammation, and it's usually caused by a chronic infection in your body. And so this is just the journey to start off with. So what I would do is, like, I know for you, maybe you're thinking this was me too. When I was 28 years old, I thought I was perfectly healthy. And then all of a sudden I was perfectly sick, right? Just overnight, within 3 days, I lost all vision in my left eye. I'd been healthy all my life. And then all of a sudden I started getting tingling and numbness in my legs and weakness in my legs. And I was flatlined on the couch. I couldn't take care of my kids. My mom had to step in. And so for me, when you learn this process, and we're going to be talking about this more as we go through, that you have likely had little warning signs for possibly years that you didn't know you had to pay attention to. And so now you have to pay attention to it. So the first thing that I personally would do is just really look at the Live Disease-Free diet. Talk to your doctor about, and this is something that your doctor probably won't know about, but if you're looking into this and you feel that it's not a physical injury, that it could possibly be like what I'm talking about from infections, then I'm not saying this, I'm saying what neurologists have said is that they used to manage MS in their patients with antihistamines that helps to settle the inflammation down. So I'm not a doctor, I can't prescribe that, but in my early days this is me talking with me having been diagnosed with MS, just starting an antihistamine, the drowsy type of antihistamine, it really helped to settle down the inflammation a lot at the start. But the diet is so important, Jackie, and getting sleep and all these things that I'm talking about, supporting the body. So this is where, if this is your very, very first, I don't know if this is your first symptom, you can let me know, but if this is your first symptom, it's a very big warning sign. And what you do in the next few days really helps to determine the level of recovery you have, right? So that's why it's really important to follow these instructions. Hi, Faisal. Number one, you're in Europe, so you're I think you're up way too late because he's a wellness champion that just started, and I want you to get your sleep. That is so important. I know that it's hard because this is late for you, but I will answer your question, but I really want you to focus on getting sleep. I promise all your questions will get answered, and you can always listen to the replays. You can always post questions too. You can always send, I'm just trying to think how you can do that, but we'll figure out a way. If you post questions early and then listen to the replay, because sleep is so important. We talked about that today. All right. Oh, here we go. Jackie, within a week and a half after I was totally paralyzed from the waist down. I feel pain every time I eat now. I'm only 35 years old and I want to be healed. I want to play with my 3-year-old daughter. So then what you do, there's a couple of different options. So number one, you can watch my videos. You can start to change your diet. That will help you tremendously. That might even get rid of the pain. You might even become symptom-free with just the prep phase, supporting the body and the diet. But you still have to treat these parasites because they're still there. The diet will not get rid of them. So then go learn and go through the videos. And if you need support from me, I can support you in the academy. So just reach out. But you can work with someone else too. It's just really hard to find somebody that understands these infections. But you can be 100% healed, but you have to treat the parasites. You can't just rely only on diet and lifestyle. They're important. You can't do it without them, but you need more. Okay, so Faisal, do perfumes and cologne affect? Yes. So they definitely can. So when we have these infections, we can become sensitive to a lot of different things. With the perfumes, the colognes, it's usually artificial, like fragrance chemicals, right? And they have a lot of, they're called xenoestrogens in it, and that is like a man-made estrogen. So this is where you might want to just ask your trainer, just say that I'm really sensitive to the perfume or the colognes that you're wearing. Would you consider getting something that is scent-free? That would really help me out a lot. And if he's a good trainer, he'll say, of course, I'm so sorry. I had no idea that this was bothering you. And that'll just be better for him too. If he goes for something more natural, scent-free, it can have essential oils. Essential oils shouldn't be a problem unless you're sensitive to one, and you'll know and you can just tell him that doesn't work. But like I have been scent free for years, and that's, for a fitness trainer, usually they're into health, so I'm surprised. So, Joanna, I think that's how you pronounce your name. Is there a guide to check for mold in the environment? I do know that Dr. Shoemaker has a website, and he has an ERMI test. You can probably find a lot of resources on his website, Dr. Shoemaker. And I can't remember what the website is called, but if you just do mold and Dr. Shoemaker, you'll find his website. And he's really, like, that's his thing. So, really helpful. Hi, Morris. Your equilibrium is off. That is from inflammation in certain parts. Sometimes it's lower in the brainstem of your central nervous system from the parasites. And as you treat them, as you stop feeding them, support the body and treat them, that can recover totally. It has for a lot of people. And also you're dealing with drop foot. Same thing. Sean, you're asking about colonics. So you have to do colonics almost every day, and there are always worms present. Is that okay? So the colonics are not going to treat the infection. So if any worm is not attached well to your intestines, it will come out. So it's an expensive thing to do all the time. Make sure that you are replenishing your electrolytes. Very, very important. I personally wouldn't do colonics every day. If somebody's really disabled and they're not able to do the oxidizing enemas, that kill the parasites, because the problem is that the colonics is just water, so it's not going to kill the parasites. And I personally would not do that every day for sure. I would definitely get ready to treat and let your bowels just work again normally for sure. But it just shows you that you are dealing with parasites. All right. Hi, John. You started the diet. Your wife is upset with you because she has lost too much weight. To increase the amount of calories you eat, you're sleeping better. You've noticed bladder improvement. Yay. Awesome. That's so good. You miss eating your fresh fruit. Well, if you got the cheat sheet, there's still a little bit of fruit you can have, like a quarter cup of berries, 30 minutes before breakfast, that's it, or a half a green apple or a very small kiwi. Again, it's all 30 minutes before breakfast. But isn't it exciting to have all these improvements in 1 week, John? I'm so proud of you. That is so awesome. Next week, I want to see more people that are engaging with the diet, and you guys can even share that you've had more success after 2 weeks on the Live Disease-Free diet. This doesn't cost you anything, and you're already starting to move forward. I'm so proud of you. So as far as your wife, just make sure that if you can't afford to lose weight, like myself, we can never afford to miss a meal or you will lose weight. You can't afford to, just be prepared, have enough food in the fridge, and you just have to get into a habit of cooking a little bit more so that you can eat bigger meals and that you can have leftovers so that you don't have to cook all the time, because we're really busy and we just like to cook a bunch, even just for my husband and I, so that we can have at least, a lunch and maybe another meal a couple of days or a day later type thing. So it's just you're getting into a new groove, into a new habit. And with your wife, all she has to do is just calculate how many calories do I need per day for my weight, my size, my activity level. And okay, take half of that, half of the calories, I'm going to get that from fat, and then divide it by, just look up how many calories in a tablespoon of fat. Okay, I need to have probably at least 9 tablespoons of healthy fat throughout the day. So if we eat vegetables and meat, but we don't eat enough healthy fats, then we lose weight too. And the plates should be platefuls. And for some of us, we have to get used to it because some people don't eat a lot of vegetables. And so they're like, I'm eating a lot of vegetables now. I'm having like 2 or 3 servings, but they're not used to having like a plate full and adding enough fat and having an adequate amount of animal protein so that you feel satisfied for at least a couple of hours. You're so welcome. I'm so happy for you. I want to hear some more. I want to hear some more successes next week. So if you're listening, make sure to go back to last week, the Live Disease-Free diet, and start to implement all the steps I shared. And then next week, report back to me your successes. And for John and for Kimberly, make sure I want to hear your continued success next week. I'm so proud of you. And Andrea, How important is exercising and how often? So, what a lot of people that become sick, they were athletes, they were really, really active. And these parasites cause us to be more and more weak, and we lose our ability to be physically active, like the strength. So, I was just talking to one gentleman today who's going to be joining us right away. And so he himself has been an athlete all his life, and now he's finding it harder and harder to perform athletically. And when he does, he pays for it dearly. So we don't want to pay for it dearly, right? So do whatever activity doesn't make you feel worse after. Like, and it's fine if you're like a healthy person and you work out and you're a little stiff for a day or two. But if you're feeling wasted after, like just like hit by a truck, can't do it for a few days, that means that it's too much for you at this time. But that will improve. Like even with the diet, it can start to improve tremendously. So just make sure that you start with exercises. You can do belly breathing, you can do stretching. If you can walk, you can walk. That's usually not too much of a problem for people. Being active is really important. And we'll talk about that more in the building a healthy lifestyle. Today, it's more about what do we do to support our body before we start treating. So very, very much, very important to be active, but we'll go into that more in detail later on. You're very welcome, Jackie. So I want to hear, awesome. So make sure to start with the diet right away. And if anyone is listening to this call and you're like, like I've been following you, I've been looking at the parasites, I totally get it. I'm sick of them. I want them out of me. I want to get on with my life. Then watch my masterclass training and you'll learn all the steps we do. You'll hear from wellness champions, like the successes they're having, case studies. And then you'll be able to book a time with me and you can join the Live Disease Free Academy. That's the best way I can support students in their recovery. And you'll be able to chat with me about it. So I'll just do a couple more last questions here. Excited for you, Jackie. It's going to change your life. Andrea, I answered yours. Felix, the only thing you still deal with, the overwhelming leg pain. And that can completely resolve, Felix. I can never make promises, but we see this all the time. Even with the diet, you may start to notice decreased leg pain. But the thing is that the carbs have to be low enough. It's not like, Pam, I've gone low carb. It's like, how low did you go? Did you go to the target zone where I told you in the video from last week? So Rosanna, lion's mane, we don't use it just because the students that I'm dealing with have a lot of fungal overgrowth. So we're just avoiding all fungi products. They're not going to cause fungal infections in us, but I just don't know if the fungus that's living in us that's causing symptoms, if it can benefit from the components from the lion's mane. So we're trying to keep things cost effective and simple. So we're only using things that are the most helpful for people, not something that could potentially theoretically be helpful, because we can spend thousands and thousands of dollars, and many of us have done that already. So are you able to work with, are you able to go to work when you treat the parasites? Yes, you can. Absolutely. But that's why this prep phase is so important. Getting ready to treat is so important, Joanna. And then when we do treat, like we'll talk more about it later, but we look at certain things so that we build a game plan. And then we introduce the treatments that you test well for slowly, one at a time. So you're not just hitting those parasites really quickly, hard, where you feel a strong die-off reaction. So that is all really important because that's not beneficial for anyone. So how do you know if there are bladder issues? So how do you know if there are bladder issues? So I don't know what you mean by that. If you're meaning like if you have bladder issues, so you would get a blood test done, like just kidney and liver function. But when I'm talking about bladder issues, when people have multiple sclerosis and chronic disease, usually the parasites, they move into the bladder. So people usually have urgency. They're up several times throughout the night. If they're going out, they have a really hard time finding bathrooms quickly. So they have urinary tract infections quite often, regularly. They're on antibiotics, which makes them even weaker. So all of those things happen in time when we're dealing with these infections. They move into different parts of the body, and the bladder is one area. So when we just even follow the diet, the live disease-free diet, which decreases the food to the bacteria and the parasites, other parasites, there can even be these little flatworms. Schistosomiasis is an infection that affects the bladder. It's very common, and E. coli and others, but they all love carbs. And as you decrease that, you're going to notice like, wow, I didn't have to get up as many times, just even in a few days. Maybe I'm getting up once or twice versus 4 to 5 or 6 times that quickly, which is so awesome. But you still have to treat, but this is just getting ready to treat. So Jackie, every time you eat, you have leg spasms and pain. You deal with the leg spasms even more at night. Yes, parasites are really active at night for sure. From the research you've done, parasites, yes, that's right. They're more active at night. Assuming that you have a very serious central nervous system infection and intestinal infection, you've been an athlete your entire life until last July, and now you've got to hit. So now you got really hit hard with this. So I don't know what you've seen of my work, but make sure that you go to Live Disease Free YouTube, and there is a playlist of infections, and you can go there and learn about the infections. So quickly, Dr. Alan McDonald has found small worms in the spinal fluid of every MS patient that he tested. And then I've done a series on fungus. They're finding fungus in the central nervous system. These worms are bringing in Borrelia, which is Lyme disease. But just remember what I shared with you before, Jackie, is that the biggest base camp of the infection is in your intestines. Yes, they move into the central nervous system. They're in our blood, they're in our organs, but the biggest concentration of them is in the intestines. So we have to treat all of it. And treating the gut, and even just with diet, that is why even if you're decreasing the food that's reaching them in the intestines, that is another big reason why we're starting to have symptom relief. And if you get serious about this and you really follow these steps really well, I'm giving you a general overview, but definitely working together, you can get on with your life. And you're way too young. You've got to enjoy your family. Like myself at 28, I was not prepared to give up my life to this horrible, horrible disease. Hi, Andrea. You're very welcome. Okay, I'm going to let you guys go. We've gone an hour. There's a few more comments. Just type your comments into the boxes, into the chat, etc., and I will answer your questions later, and my team will also. So I hope that you found this topic really helpful. Supporting the body is essential if we want to recover from these infections. There's no way around it. You have to support the body. It makes the treatment phase much more pleasurable and much more successful. And you'll see in the videos coming up when we are building the game plan that it's not like we can just take a 2-week prescription and we've cleared the parasites out of our entire body. It doesn't work that way. It's not like strep throat or tonsillitis. So the supporting the body are things that you can do that will make your recovery so much more successful. And the exciting thing is you start to feel better right away. So please, if you found this helpful, share it with others. Help us get the word out that these diseases, chronic disease is caused by infections. Empower other people so that they can also start to take back their health and their life by doing things that they can do themselves in their own home, in the comfort of their home. We have to be strong and healthy in this day that we're living. It's crazy times, and we definitely want to make sure that we are as strong as possible and get on with our life and enjoy our life. So with that, if you're ready to be a wellness champion, remember you can watch my masterclass training. You can reach out to me. You can get started right away. Otherwise, go back and watch last week if you haven't. Start to implement the diet and report back to me next week all the successes you're having. That is what makes me so happy. So with that, I'll talk to you next week. Take care and bye-bye for now.